Welcome to Kathryn Raaker's World. Innovation, culture, adventure, fashion and health, artists, destinations, traditions. This is Kathryn Raaker's World.
Hi, this is Kathryn Raaker of Kathryn Raaker's World, our syndicated TV show, and Let's Just Talk, our syndicated radio show. I have the honor of having Dan Perkins. He's a registered investment advisor, a commentator, nationally commentator, an international commentator. He has his own television show, his own television network, and he is also an artist, an author. There's so many things he does, it's hard to keep up. So he is an expert on my show, and today we are talking about the billions of dollars that Biden and the Biden administration hasn't actually used yet. Can you explain that to us, Dan? Welcome to our show, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Kathryn, it's a story that I saw this morning. I have not seen it. I haven't seen it on Fox. I haven't seen it anywhere else. But there are other smaller news outlets that are reporting it. And what they're reporting is that when the Congress passed Joe Biden's $1.2 trillion COVID relief bill shortly after he took office, there was money appropriated for all kinds of things in education and hospitals and schools and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
What this report came out this morning said that there's at least $100 billion of appropriated funds which haven't been spent or even sent out to the states, because the states already got a big chunk of money and they haven't even figured out how to spend all of that yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to run out of time, because if they can't get this done by the end of late 24, early 25, that $100 billion will go back to the Treasury, which I don't think is necessarily a bad idea. But the idea that, I'll give you an example, not too far from you over in Indiana, there's a school district that wants to hire, now think about this, they want to hire 84 full-time staff members to be reading specialists. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to use the COVID money to pay for them. Where's the money going to come from in year two? Are they going to lay these?
Where?
Are they going to lay these teachers off? Are they going to raise taxes so they can generate more income to pay for these 84 teachers? So they're not thinking at all about how to effectively manage. And there are states out there, Kathryn, who are saying, well, we spent $125 million. But the reality is, Kathryn, we don't have any receipts.
It's funny.
That's the reality. There are
That's the
states that
reality.
have spent this kind of money and have no proof that they actually spent it. And so the federal government's out of control of its expenditures and its enforcement. And so are many of the states who are spending these taxpayer dollars on things like increased air conditioning systems and special education teachers, reading teachers, distance learning. That worked real well. So let's pour another $10 million in distance learning. So what I'm saying is that they're spending, they're on a spending binge with no rhyme or reason. And even one of the administrators in Indiana said that as he's talked to his counterparts around the country, there's no rhyme or reason to what they're doing. They're just filling in numbers as quickly as they can so they can try and get as much money as necessary. But they're making decisions trying to fund long-term problems with short-term financing, and they're not going to have the money to pay the teachers next year. So what happens? Either they have to raise taxes property taxes on your home,
Mhm.
or they have to fire these 84 teachers. And then what happens to the children who are still woefully behind in where they should be based on grade point average? What happens to those children that are now don't have the teacher?
Let me ask you this question right there. Why doesn't Congress have anything to do with this, since they have all this money sitting out there, and what can they do? What can the House of Representatives or the Senate do to change that or have an effect on it? Or don't they have any say in it?
Kathryn, I'm going to suggest something that your audience may not be aware of. When a bill is passed in the House or the Senate, or then goes to the president to be signed into law, many of the provisions are tied to a specific office, meaning state, treasury, labor, defense, whatever. And so they'll put a number, $100 million defense. And then they say, at the discretion of the secretary. So the Congress has been giving for years massive appropriations of money to various departments in the government with no accountability, at the discretion of the secretary. So the secretary is responsible, and their staff, to draw up the regulations that fit whatever the appropriation is. And so Congress has abdicated their position as the keeper of the purse by saying to Congress, you should be passing legislation that has accountability and where the money's going to go.
The secretary of each department, or the
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So it's the
Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Treasury, right.
Right.
Cabinet Treasury, the cabinet secretaries have the responsibility, which really leads to another point, Kathryn, and that is, I believe, and I've been saying for some time now, with Joe Biden, we don't have a president.
We know that.
We know what we have is effectively the office of president. Why would we support a tax increase when we know that at least $100 billion that's sitting in the treasury of appropriated funds that we haven't spent, and we can't figure out how to spend it? Why would we want to have more taxes to generate more revenue? It doesn't make any sense. And this is where what I just told you about, at the discretion of the secretary, where that's extremely dangerous, Kathryn, is in tax bills. When they start writing new tax legislation, you're going to see that all over the place. They'll talk about what they want to accomplish, but at the discretion of the Secretary of Treasury to implement what the changes is going to necessarily be. So we're empowering this abuse by continuing to vote for the people who are sitting in the chairs saying, agreeing to at the discretion of the secretary. We got to stop that.
I think that we need to empower ourselves by getting to know what we're talking about. And that's the reason why we have you on the show and other people that are experts in these different situations, because we really need to get involved.
As you recall, when they first put out the appropriation for Ukraine, Israel, and for Taiwan, there was a fourth component, and that was significant amount of money for border security. When it didn't pass, the thing that they cut was border security and never touched it again. And we had, I think, 14 Republicans who voted to take it out, along with the Democrats. So now he wants to bring it back because he wants to get the bill on the floor of the Senate. He needs 60 votes to pass it. As of yesterday, he had 50. So it's not going to pass. He's bringing it out as a political ploy because he wants the Republicans to vote to either turn it down, but he wants them on the record. And part of the money to pay for this is coming from the $100 billion that hasn't been spent. It's crazy. And so he's trying to trap the Republicans, just like they were trying to trap Donald Trump in New York. And what's interesting is now there's the rhetoric and discussion from the talking heads is even on the left networks is, oh my God, he could get acquitted. Donald Trump could be acquitted in New York. Could happen. Whether it will or not, I think there's a very good chance that there will be a hung jury, and they're not going to be able to appeal that.
What can we do as citizens to help change this situation?
I think there's two things you have to do. You have to make sure that you're registered to vote, number one. Number two, you need to write to your congressmen and senators and tell them of your disdain. Go to the polls and look for opportunities to see if you can help monitor the election.
Right.
And make sure that all the votes are counted and there's no shenanigans going on as best we can. If we can make the election honest and fair, then I don't think Mr. Trump has a problem at all. But I have grave concerns about what the Democrats are going to do. Well, there was a big story today about the fact that Kamala is out on the road pushing the Biden agenda, and that she's positioning herself in the event that Mr. Biden is perceived by the leadership of the Democratic Party as unelectable, to replace him with her.
That's even sadder.
Or scarier.
It's scarier. Or having the guy from California, the governor, in there, or Hillary Clinton, or Obama's wife. They showed a list of people that could take over, right?
Mhm.
Well, we know, you and I know, that and here's the best one I want to bring out before we end the show today. The best
Okay.
one is that how could he, who cannot get sentences right, debate Trump?
Well, what do you think of Mr. Trump's suggestion that there ought to be a drug test for both of them?
Well, I think so too. But who's going to look over that drug test of him? That's what I want to know. So, I mean, we really need to watch what's going on. And people, even though it's Memorial Day weekend, watch what's going on. Keep an eye on it. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I know we have to close, but this is an important piece of information in my concern. I am still amazed at the number of people who think because Mr. Trump is on Fox News and some other conservative stations that his message is getting out. He's talking to the choir. We have to understand that with NBC, CBS, ABC, MSNBC, and CNN, they control approximately 44% of the television viewers.
Right.
Fox gets about 4.5%. So there's 10 times more people watching away from Fox than there are watching Fox. And so there's a lot of people who have no idea what's going on in New York at the trial or what's going on in the other trials, that they're basically dead in the water because the mainstream media is not reporting what's going on. They're reporting their viewpoint. And so we can't get comfortable with the idea that we keep seeing how great things are when you've got President Trump up 12 points in one state and the other poll says they're dead even.
We have run out of time as usual, and I get excited because I think that we really are on top of it. You need to be, the audience needs to be on top of it as well. I want to thank you for everything that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Don't forget your websites, please.
danperkinsmedia.org is one. songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us is for the foundation, and danperkins.guru is my personal website.
I want to thank you for joining us today on Kathryn Raaker's World. Go to KathrynRaakersWorld.com or Let'sJustTalk.com. And don't forget my cooking show, which is thechefyouandI.com. And thank you for joining me today.